It started with a simple rule. Never answer the door after midnight. That was the only rule my grandmother had when I stayed at her house. No matter what, no matter who knocked. I used to think it was just paranoia. She was old, lived alone in a house on the edge of town, and had seen too many crime shows. But after what happened to me, I wish I had listened. It was last winter during the holidays. My parents had gone on a trip, leaving me to spend a week with my grandmother. I didn't mind. She made great food, let me sleep in, and aside from the occasional weird rule, she wasn't too strict. Her house was old but cozy, tucked between tall skeletal trees that shuddered when the wind howled. The first few nights were uneventful. I spent most of my time watching TV or scrolling through my phone, bundled under layers of blankets to escape the winter chill. Then came the night I broke the rule. It was past midnight. My grandmother had already gone to bed, and I was sitting in the living room, lazily flipping through channels when I heard it. Knock, 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 dot soft, dot slow. I sat up, confused. Who would be knocking at this hour? The wind was howling outside, rattling the windows, making the house creak like an old ship at sea. Maybe I imagined it. Then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. My stomach tightened. I glanced at the clock. 12:27 a.m. I suddenly remembered my grandmother's rule. Never answer the door after midnight. I shook my head. It was probably a neighbor. Maybe someone whose car broke down. I couldn't just ignore them. I got up and walked to the front door, hesitating before peering through the peephole. Nothing, just the empty snow-covered porch stretching into the blackness beyond. I frowned. Maybe they left. I started to turn away. Knock, knock, knock. Louder this time. My heart jumped. I spun back around, my breath fogging up the glass as I checked the peephole again. Still nothing. But then, a voice. It's freezing out here. Can you let me in? A woman, soft-spoken, almost pleading. I hesitated. Never answer the door after midnight. But what if she really needed help? I took a deep breath and unlocked the deadbolt, pulling the door open just a crack. Cold air rushed inside, sending a violent shiver down my spine. The porch was empty, the snow untouched, no footprints, no woman, just darkness. Then I heard it, a whisper, right beside my ear. You shouldn't have opened the door. I slammed it shut, my hands trembling as I locked it again. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. I stumbled back, staring at the door, half expecting it to fly open. But nothing happened. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then, just as I started convincing myself it was all in my head, I heard something from upstairs, the creak of a floorboard. Someone was inside the house. I backed away slowly, my mind racing. My grandmother was asleep down the hall. Had she gotten up? I forced myself to turn around and look toward the staircase. And that's when I saw her, a woman standing at the top of the stairs, barely visible in the dim light. Her long, dark hair hung over her face, obscuring her features. She was motionless, her head slightly tilted, as if listening. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, in a slow, unnatural motion, she took a single step down. Creak! I turned and ran. I sprinted down the hall, flinging open my grandmother's bedroom door. She jolted awake, confused and startled. Someone's in the house? I gasped. She didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate. She simply got up, locked the door, and pulled me close. You opened the door, didn't you? She whispered. I nodded, too scared to speak. We sat there in silence, my grandmother clutching my hand tightly. I could hear movement outside the bedroom, slow footsteps, soft tapping against the wooden floor. Then, a whisper. You shouldn't have opened the door. I buried my face in my grandmother's shoulder, squeezing my eyes shut, praying for it to stop. At some point, I must have passed out, because the next thing I remember was waking up to daylight streaming through the window. The house was quiet. My grandmother never spoke of what happened. She only made one thing very clear. Never answer the door after midnight. I never broke that rule again.